Hello, everyone. I think I'm just waiting for the last people to finish joining in. Perfect. So, yes, hello. So today's webinar is going to be about planning the strategy for implementing AI and automation in your business. We'll run through effectively the process, the framework that Genmar's built out, which we use to help small and medium businesses choose the right tasks in their business to automate, and then build a matrix of those tasks to work out a priority. And what we think is probably one of the most important parts of all this is actually do a return on investment calculation to understand actually after implementing AI and automation, have you been successful? Have you saved money or saved time by doing that? Because that is normally the outcome that people are wanting to achieve by implementing AI and automation.
So first things first, why should you listen to us? Who are we? So we are Genmar. We're an IT company. It's been running for 30 years this year. We've been running automation projects for businesses for about 20 years or so now. And we've done over 100 automation and AI projects. The AI element of that is obviously a little bit newer. So we've only been running AI projects for the last 5 years or so, but actually business process automation projects we've been running for, like I say, over 20 years now. And we are part of Microsoft's official AI partnership program, which gives us access to the dedicated resources from Microsoft in terms of training and licensing and things that we can help businesses out with, as well as having over 5 trained dedicated sort of automation and AI engineers that work for us internally at Genmar now. So the numbers here are quite interesting, actually. So I actually updated this slide this morning because the numbers change so often. 54% of UK SMEs are now reported to be using AI tools. This is based off of a British Chamber of Commerce survey that was done a month or so ago, which is quite a lot, seeing as when I made this slide, that number was actually 23% a few months ago from their last year's survey. So from 2025 to 2026, that number's increased from 23% to 54%, which is quite impressive growth. I'm definitely seeing that from the businesses that I speak to on a regular basis. Most SMEs that we speak to are implementing AI in some way or another. First thing that businesses are starting to do is to adopt sort of AI chat bots, ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude. But this is the problem I'd see. The difference between these two numbers here is that 54% of UK SMEs have adopted AI in some way, but actually through a BCC survey, which was done recently, only 11% of businesses have reported to say they've actually seen a transformative result by doing so, i.e., has it worked? Have they saved time and money by implementing AI? That's really the crux of what this meeting, this webinar is about. Is we see that time and time again for businesses that we speak to on a regular basis, is that they're implementing AI. They've bought Copilot licenses, they've bought ChatGPT licenses, they've told the team to start using it, but actually they've not seen a sort of material return on investment on that money and time. And the way that we see it is that it's because of the planning that needs to go into that before we implement AI and automation, because there's a lot of marketing around now in terms of AI software and tools that say they're going to automate everything in your business just by giving them some money. But in some cases that can be the case. Some bits of software we've seen really good return on investment for people, but often I think the case is it's a bit more bespoke than that, and normally just buying an off-the-shelf product and trying to use it doesn't give you that return on investment that you expect. So the planning element of this is really important. What we'll be going through is what tasks in your business can you actually automate, and will these tools that you're purchasing and investing time and money into actually help you automate those tasks that you do? And this last figure here is just to show that even more businesses are considering adopting AI going forward as well. So it's up over 50% now. So the first sort of problem that people have when it comes to planning AI and automation adoption in their business is, which tasks is it in the business that should be automated? And I would say the hardest problem to solve out of all of this when it comes to how we help our clients adopt AI and automation is they get stuck on the first stumbling block with this, which is what are we actually automating? Which tasks in our business can be automated? So this is the framework that we use when we do our audits with clients to work out which tasks can be automated. And it's really these 4 focuses that you can look at to determine which tasks should be looked at. So framework is do a discovery. So use the 4 lenses that I'll go through on the next slide about which tasks should be automated. Score those tasks to say how impactful and feasible it is to automate them. Calculate your costs. So it's a really important part about working out what your return on investment could be, and then test it. So run a pilot for the first one, the highest priority item that you've made in your matrix, test it for an 8-week pilot, measure the results. And this is the key thing, I think, is that you calculate what your return on investment should be, you run the pilot, and then you calculate if it actually has saved people time and money. So I think that's part of the problem that we see, is that you see an AI tool, it promises the world, you implement it, but then actually that's that last step of going in afterwards and saying, has it actually provided material return on that investment? Is it automating the task in the way that we said it was going to? Is it actually speeding up people's lives and making life easier for everyone? Or what we've seen in some cases is actually it's providing a bottleneck or an extra time constraint to people having to jump through additional loops that have been added into the processes. And it could be that you're spending money on tools that are actually now costing the business more money by taking up more time. So this is the first step. This is the 4 lenses I was talking about. So this is how you identify tasks in the business that could be automated. So the 4 things are repetition, handoffs, frustration, and missing work. So first one of this is repetition. So pretty straightforward here is, are you doing tasks that are repeat? Do you do them over and over and over again in a very similar way? That's a real red flag for this could be automated. Examples of this could be reports. We see businesses very often, they've got someone working in the business whose job it is to go around different bits of software that they have, track down emails and speak to people, collate all that information into an Excel sheet and produce a report that management looks at once a month or once a week or something. So that's a great example of a repetitive task. It's the same every time you do it, and you do it on a regular basis. More examples of that could be invoice processing, email queries. We ran a good project for someone recently, which was that they have an email at mailbox where they receive lots of customer inquiries. But when we looked at the actual emails that are being received, they basically fell into 4 different types of emails. So repeat answers to the same questions over and over again was the flag that said that's something that could be automated. The next one, which is very, very common, is handoffs. So this is where data or processes switch between different people and systems on a regular basis, or at least a few times within one process. So I've got a good example of this on the next slide, actually, but it's where you start a process and it goes between one team to another team, or maybe from one person to a piece of software to a different person to another piece of software. And each time you're doing that handoff, one, it adds levels of potential errors and slows down the process because you're waiting for different people to get involved in the process. But 2, it's something that with integration automation can be sped up. So good examples of this could be where you've got data that you're taking from phone calls or on-site surveys or manual sort of data collection that you're then inputting into an Excel sheet, or that you're then putting it into your CRM system that then someone else downloads and does some more data processing with. Looking at that whole flow of that process timeline and see how many handoffs there are in there. Those 2 examples I gave just then, so repetition and handoffs, are examples of where time could be saved by doing automation, which is the most common way that we've seen people look at this, is that they're trying to save time by implementing AI and automation. But another way of looking at this is actually improving the reliability and performance of tasks that you're doing, which is where these second 2 come in, which is frustration and missing work. So frustration could be that you've actually got processes in your business which aren't working particularly well. Maybe you're having feedback from clients to say that you're not doing things in a good way, or examples here are scheduled meetings, staff PRs and one-to-ones. Maybe they're just not happening. Maybe you're missing those and you just want to make sure that those are actually being done in a more satisfactory way. And that leads into the missing work one as well, which is that you're not currently doing processes and tasks in the business that you could potentially do if you automated them. So one good example of this is marketing. We speak to a lot of smaller businesses that don't have the time to be doing regular scheduled social media posts or whatever it is. If they had the time, they'd like to be able to do more of that. So this is an example of one where instead of looking at processes that already exist in the business and how do I automate them, it's more a case of actually what would I like to be able to do if I had the time, And can I make an automated process to make it so that it happens without me having to spend lots of time on it every week or every month or whatever it is? So those are the four lenses. Really what this process, like I say, is finding tasks in your business that you can try and automate. So that's the purpose of going through these four: repetition, handoffs, frustration, and missing work. And a good way that we actually do that exercise with businesses is we sit down in a meeting and we just go through it with various sort of members of different departments in the businesses. It's really interesting actually where we've sat down with C-suite, managing directors, owners of businesses and asked these questions, and you don't necessarily get the answers to them, because I think sometimes business owners like myself think that everything in the business is working perfectly well and there are no problems with any parts of the business. But actually bringing in department heads, people that are actually doing the work sort of on the ground, they actually bring a lot of information like this to the table when we have these meetings and sit with people and say, what is it that you do day to day that you would find repetitive? Your processes that you have that you require a lot of handoff between different departments. Where do you get the most amount of frustration from yourself or from clients? What is it that you'd like to be doing that you don't have the time to be doing? Actually, just doing that with the staff in the business actually yielded really good opportunities for automation. So here's an example of one. So there's an environmental consultancy business that we work with where we did that task for, which I just explained. We had a meeting with them and found some opportunities. So this is a really good example of one that's a sort of handoff lens. So they have a process in their business, which was that they go on site and they do on-site surveys. So they physically go on site, they fill out a form on paper, do environmental surveys. They then come back into the office, they type the information that they collected into an Excel sheet. That's then checked by someone else in the business. Then a third person in the business gets the data that's been checked. They write a report in Word using a template, and then they email that data to the client. So good example here of where that's being handed off between multiple people, multiple departments, and different systems. So it's going from pen and paper to an Excel sheet, to then being checked by someone, to then to a Word document, to then being emailed out to the client. And this also is a good example of how I think one of the questions we get from people quite often is, is the plan with AI and automation to try and replace people, or should we all be worried that it's all going to take our jobs and things? And I think who knows what's going to happen in the future, but at the moment, all of these processes that we're looking at for people, they really are about speeding up processes and helping people with tasks that they're doing. And very rarely is it replacing the work that someone's doing with automation. So this is a good example here of that. So the data is collected after the automation was finished. The data is still collected in the same way, but we then built an automation for it, which processes that information, creates it into a Word document, and then emails it straight to the client automatically, because it was all just templated information before. So we've skipped out the 3 steps in the middle. So the same person's filling out the survey data on site, automatically being collected and analyzed by an AI, and then emailed straight out to the client. So the turnaround time for that one sort of process being done went from 2 days to 20 minutes. So before the automation was in place, after the survey was completed, it would then sit around for 2 days, going into the Excel sheet, being checked, having someone else write it into a Word document, and then being emailed out. After the automation was done, survey data was collected, saved onto their system, and then within 20 minutes, it was analyzed and emailed out to the client. Let me just move on to the next one. So after we've made a list of the opportunities that we just did in the first stage, so we've gone through those 4 lenses and we've now got a list of tasks that could be automated in the business. Then we need to think about which ones to work on first, because another problem that we see when people start to go down the journey of implementing AI and automation is they try to do too much at once. So actually, if you've got a list, you just made a list of 15, 20 things. If you start trying to work on all 15 of those at once, you're going to cause problems, both in terms of communication and error rates, but also just burnout, not being able to get your return on investment that you want. So it's important to be able to choose priority for the tasks that you've created, so you can pick the ones you want to work on first. And this is what this next stage is about. So it's moving that list of sort of 15 tasks into more of a matrix that gives you a priority for those. So what you do is you go through each of those tasks and you give each one a grading for each of these. So it's time saved, error impact, the amount of people that are affected, and the data readiness. So it's pretty simple. So time saved is how much time automating that process would save. For each of these, we just give it a 1 to 5 score. So 1 would be less than an hour, 5 would be sort of 20 hours plus. Impact. So what's the cost to the business if there's a problem with this process? A 1 would be very minor, 5 would be very costly if there was an error with that process. People affected. So this is how many people and customers are affected by this process. 1 score would be 1 person, 5 would be lots, could be different depending on your business type. If you're a huge business, then I guess 5 could be hundreds of thousands or so, but you'll understand that by looking at the others. And then data readiness. So this one could be a bit trickier to work out, but this is more about how ready is your data to be automated. Simply put, if it's on very analog systems at the moment, like paper and pen, that's more difficult. If the whole process is being done all on paper outside of computer systems, then that's going to be a 1. And if it's a 5, it's going to be that it's all saved inside CRMs and existing sort of digital platforms. And here's what it looks. So after you've done that, so this is an example list that I've created here. So you can see these are my processes on the first column. So I've got creating quotations, monthly report compilation, invoice processing, and then it's going to give me those scores I just talked about. So time, errors, people, data, and a total. So you can see here for the first one, creating quotations, I've said it's going to save lots of time. It causes a lot of problem if it has errors. It affects lots of people, and the data is already in quite a digital system, which is making it one of my highest priority ones to look at. Whereas you can see at the bottom here, my staff, PRs, and one-to-ones, it doesn't take up a huge amount of time. The errors don't cause a huge problem. It only affects a small number of people, and the data's all saved outside of digital systems that could be easily automated, which makes it a lower priority. And this gives you a list of which tasks in the business should I look at tackling first. So we've moved from potentially not knowing where to start in terms of what could be automated in the business to now having a list of prioritized tasks that we can work through. And then the next step is working out cost. So we've got that list, we see the priorities, and now we want to work out the return on investments. So the reason we're doing this is twofold. One is so that you if it's worth spending the time to actually automate it. And 2, so that again, at the end of this process, you'll be able to calculate whether you are successful or not. So we'll do this to calculate the amount of money that you will potentially save by performing the automation. And then at the end, you'll be able to calculate, did we actually do that? Did we actually save the time and money that we said we were going to? So the formula is pretty straightforward for this. It's effectively how many times you do the task, how long does the task take, and then what is your hourly cost for that time. So normally that's talking about salary cost for the people that are performing those tasks. So an example of that would be here. So that from my list I showed before of my priorities, the top one was creating quotes. So these are the steps that go into creating the quotes in this fictional situation. So the client requests a quote by email. We look up previous quotes in the shared drive. We check availability in stock. We build a quote in Excel. We get the manager to approve it by email, and then we format it and send it out to the client. And then we're writing here how long each of those tasks take. So 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. The total time is 42 minutes. And then it's how often you do that. How many quotes do you produce in a month? So then you're working out for this particular task, they're making 30 quotes in a month. That's 21 hours a month. So over the year, based off of a £25 an hour salary cost for the people that are doing this work, that's a £6,300 a year saving. That's if you believe, obviously, that you can fully automate this task. So the next stage there is to work out if we think that half of that workflow could be automated, you're looking at roughly half of that number. So if you think that you'll be able to get that time down from 42 minutes per quote being created to half of that, then you're looking at £3,000 a year that you can save by doing it. And it's helpful to do that because now how long should I spend on doing this? What's the worth me doing it? What's my return on investment? If I have to buy tools to get this done, if the tool's going to cost £10,000 a year, it's not worth it. And that's something that we see quite often, people investing a lot of money and time into processes being automated that actually won't yield a significant amount of savings to them. And then the process for this is to define which process you're going to automate. So we've made the priority list and we've gone through them. So we're choosing our quotation one. We're going to measure the baselines and measure exactly how long and costly it is to do that task in the business as it stands. We're then going to build out the automation for that task. This webinar, by the way, is all about planning. I'll be doing future webinars about actually building out automations and AI implementations for businesses as well. So if you want to see what the next stage of this is after you've planned, then either get in contact with us, we'll help you out a bit, or just keep your eyes peeled for the next webinar that comes out. But yeah, the plan is, the process is define it, pick one, calculate your baseline, build and test the solution, whatever the automation is going to be for automating that task, and then measure after this 8-week period, have you been successful? I think this is such an important part of the process that people miss out on at the moment, which is that you've picked a process, you've built an automation for it, you've invested some time and money into that. Have you actually seen the return on investment that you planned in the beginning? You said it was going to save you £6,000 a year because it was going to eliminate the manual tasks of creating quotes. Is that actually the case 8 weeks later? Are people now not spending any time creating quotes? Is it less time? How much less time is it? Recalculate that return on investment. If you thought it was going to go from 42 minutes per quote to 0, but actually it's gone from 42 minutes to 41 minute per quote, then you've not seen that return on investment. And maybe you need to re-look at the automation to see if you can make it better, or cut the losses, stop paying for the costs of the AI processes that you've paid for because you're maybe costing the business more money than you've saved. But if you've done the planning properly, you should be hopefully in a place where you're measuring it after 8 weeks and found you're there. You've met the return on investment, and then you can move on to the next task that's in your priority list. So these are the 5 most sort of common problems that we find for people that are doing their own AI planning. Starting with the technology. So this is 100%, this is the biggest problem that we see with people. AI companies have a lot of money and they run really good marketing campaigns. And what we see often is that people see a piece of technology, they're bought into it, and they want to try and find a place in their business where they can squish that technology into it to try and make automation and AI happen. But like we've just been through, that's the wrong way around to look at this. So you don't want to start with technology and see where you can squeeze it into the business. You want to start with your business and find the technology that's going to fix those pain points that you have. So start with the processes that you already have, and then find technology that's going to make those processes more streamlined. Second one is trying to do everything at once. There is no silver bullet. I've spoken to a lot of people who buy Copilot and think, great, that's going to automate everything in my business on day one. Copilot's a great tool, but it's not going to do that. You need to plan the processes, work out how you're going to automate them, and pick them off one by one, because you can't do everything all at once. Third thing is the baselines that we just talked about. If you don't measure what you're currently doing today before you automate things, you'll have no understanding as to whether or not it's worked. So without understanding how costly the tasks that you're working on currently, how time consuming they are before you implement the automation, there's no way for you to measure your return on investment after implementing something. Fourth is super important, which is the people side of this. I think a lot of business owners, and myself included in this, get very swept up in how they can implement automation to make their business better before actually consulting and having a conversation with the people that are doing those tasks day to day. Something to bear in mind with all of this is that there is a bit of a fear around AI taking people's jobs. And as much as we know that that's not true and that these automations we're going to be putting in place won't be doing that, and we're doing it to try and help people and save them time and make their jobs easier for them, you need to make sure you're having those conversations with the team, because ultimately, if they're not bought in to the processes, they're not going to run them the way that you want them to. So it's important to bring your team in on day one when you're planning these things, get the buy-in from them, make sure they're aware of the reasons why you're doing it so that they can actually enact the change that you're planning for them. And the last thing is very similar to the baseline, is calculating the real costs of your current processes as opposed to just the time savings. What does it actually mean in terms of a money figure? So what are the salaries of the people that are going to be doing those tasks, and how long does it take them? So what I'll be sharing with everyone that's joined this webinar, I'll be sharing with everyone an Excel template, which I'll just get on my screen now so I can show you. The purpose of that Excel spreadsheet is to give you a template to go through this process that we've just explained. So this is, bear with me, sorry, 2 seconds. Here it is. So I'll share this out with email to everyone that's on the webinar. It goes through the process that we've just talked about and allows you to enter in processes and tasks in your business. And then it will give you that structured sort of matrix of tasks to work on, as well as being able to help with the cost analysis and piloting of tasks as well. So page 1 is the instruction set. So on here, it talks about stage 1 is the pinpointing, which is working out which tasks you can automate. Stage 2 is prioritization. Stage 3 is mapping and cost. And then stage 4 is the piloting. And you'll see that on the bottom here. These are the tabs that go across. So this has got some dummy data in it at the moment. So here we go. Pinpointing is what we just talked about to start with, which is the 4 lenses. This is you trying to find opportunities in your business to do automation. So we're looking at repetition, handoffs, frustration, and missing work. Like I say, the best way to do this, book a meeting in with all of your heads of departments and people that are actually running the tasks in your business. Ask them these questions. Like I say, that's a great opportunity to get some buy-in from people as well. This is where you can just pop in these tasks that you've sat down and worked out. So these monthly report compilation from multiple spreadsheets for the finance department that was found using the repetition lens. What that'll do is that'll automatically populate the prioritization section for you, which you can then enter in your calculations for each of these. So your gradings from 1 to 5 for time saved or error impact, people affected, and data readiness. As you enter those, that will give you this prioritization level. So the ones that are highlighted in green there are the ones that we're saying, get a little tick box, the ones that are saying to have a look at. Pop those into the mapping and cost field. So it will populate this for you into the process steps. So all you need to do then is just add in there how long each task takes. So here are the tasks for this specific process that we're looking at. So this is process number 1 that we're looking to move into automation. Map out each task, who does the task, how long does that task take, whether or not you think it might be automatable. That's maybe a question where you might have to get some help from some people. Speak to us if you've got any questions on this. If you've got any questions on whether something can be automated or not, then by all means, give me a call, book in a meeting with me, and I can help answer any of these questions. Then you'll work out the costs and things for you here as well, because you'll pop in your hourly average rate, and then it'll calculate everything else for you. And it will give you here, that's your annual cost saving for that process. And like I said before, this isn't for the whole process being automated. We're saying that this bit's manual and this bit might not be automated. So it will calculate that for you and say, that's the cost, that's your return on investment if you automate that process. And then your plan. So the process that we're going to automate, why we're going to do it, which includes the cost saving information, how long we're going to do it for, who's going to be running the automation, who's going to build it. I put Genmar here, obviously. Estimate your investment, estimate your savings from it, and then importantly, at the end of it, this is before, but apologies. So before, make sure you're measuring your baselines. This is where we currently are, 8-week timeline. The end, did you do it? Did you actually get the return on investment that you're expecting? Did you get the £9,000 of savings in the 8 weeks or so that you're going to run the project for annually? And if they're successful and you're happy with it, next steps, go back to your prioritization list, choose the next one off, tick, keep going through them, and that will be the way that you continually streamline the processes out of your business. Let me just close that up. So just finish off my PowerPoint. Right, perfect. That is all I've got. So I will email everyone a copy of a recording of this meeting, this webinar, along with a download to the workbook. So you can go ahead and start planning your own AI and automation journeys. Like I say, we are here to help, whether you're an existing customer or not of Genmar's. Book in a free assessment call. We'll help you fill out the Excel sheet, help you answer any questions about what potentially could or couldn't be automated. And then if you need, obviously, someone to enact some of that automation for you, we can quote for project work to get that done. I'll open the floor up to any questions that anyone may have. You can use the Sarah. What your question is about whether a task is automatable or not. It is a bit of a difficult question. I'm not going to lie. It is hard. I'm not going to be able to explain necessarily to everyone easily how easy it is to work out every task if it's automatable or not. Really, the answer is anything can be automated, is the honest answer. Any task that you have could be automated. The real question is just how time consuming, costly, or difficult it would be to actually get the automation done. Some things are incredibly easy. A lot of the automation work that we do for businesses relies on business process automation software. So I'll put on your message about Power Automate. That is the bit of software that we use for most of our business process automation. What Power Automate allows you to do is create workflows that trigger actions. So a very simple one could be, for instance, when an email is received, create a file and put it somewhere else. Or when an email is received, take the data and put it into a CRM. So those kind of things are normally very easily automated. Like I was saying before, if everything's written down on bits of paper and pen and paper, that can be a little harder because it's going to be a bit more, you're going to have to do some work in terms of converting that data from analog to digital first. So like I say, it's all possible. It's just that's going to add another layer of complexity, which means cost to get the automation done, which again is why the ROI calculation piece and the baseline testing is so important to start with. Because if you find that there's a task in your business which is really heavily reliant on analog paper and pen processes, but actually it's taking a huge amount of time at the moment to do it, and even if it needs to stay on paper and pen, maybe when you've worked out that ROI, that tells you that you can in fact spend the money to get the more difficult parts automated because you're going to get that return on investment afterwards. But my honest answer is have a chat with us. I wish I had a better answer for you about finding out whether something can be automated or not. Have a chat with us and we'll be able to give you a good answer for it. But it can be a little bit tricky to work that part out. But once you've got your priorities lined out and you've got your ROI, at least then if we tell you it's expensive to get it done, you will know whether you should do it or not because you know how much money you're going to save by doing it. I haven't seen any other questions come through. So if no one else has any questions, I'll close up the webinar. If anyone has any questions afterwards, like I say, I'll be emailing everyone with a copy of this presentation with the workbook, my contact details on. So if anyone has any follow-up questions, book a meeting in with me, have a chat, or pop me an email, and I'll happily answer any questions for you. But thanks for everyone for joining, and speak to you all soon. Bye.